Hello again, everyone. You're joining us for another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. My name is Jeff Mix. I'm head of content and research. My guest today is Sam Tomlinson of Industrial Matrix. We're going to be having a conversation about lubrication in the manufacturing space, which, you know, it's so important, and then we don't really get to talk about it on this show, so I'm really excited for this topic. Sam, thank you so much for joining me today.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start off with sort of the big picture overview, and then we can get down into some specifics, because, you know, I know proactive, preventative maintenance, most people are pretty comfortable talking about that in the big picture, and now we're going to focus down into the lubrication piece of this. Set the scene for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So vibration technology, temperature monitoring, come a long way over decades, really, and now there's a lot of players in the space that have different ways of taking data from machines, putting machines online, predicting failures, using AI, using, you know, all the technologies today to, you know, predict failures and manage their assets. But one area where we feel we're really strong and we really enjoy coming to shows and speaking to people at all levels is, you know, lubrication, because it often kind of gets left out of the predictive maintenance sphere. A lot of people, you know, have vibration monitoring and think that it's kind of good enough to monitor lubrication as well. Whereas, you know, we actually can get a lot more sensitive, a lot more precise in monitoring lubrication on bearings and within motors, using ultrasound, using, you know, high frequency monitoring technologies. And it really benefits, you know, all levels of the process, whether it's the person who's going around with a grease gun and lubricating bearings, or whether it's the maintenance manager knowing the best grease to have on the shelf and provide. The planner in the same way, you know, purchasing, the way up to those who want to get the longest life out of their bearings and keep that, you know, precision lubrication on point. Basically, to summarize, being able to make data-driven decisions, being able to make autonomous decisions when it comes to lubricating bearings, you know, using real-time data.
So I like to maybe try to put myself in the position of the listeners of this show. I think a lot of the manufacturing executives probably were on plant floors 20, 30 years ago, and when they think lubrication, they think I'm walking around and there's a clipboard hanging on the machine. When am I supposed to change out the different fluids in this machine? That is not the situation anymore.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can talk about what an ideal plant floor looks like from the perspective of modern lubrication thinking.
Yeah, so there's a sensor on every bearing telling us, you know, on an online dashboard exactly, you know, what the data is pulling through is. There's an online dashboard that's autonomously interpreting that data, and it is prompting lubrication onto that bearing accordingly. And if the wrong type of grease is being used, if the grease is not making it to the bearing, if there's a buildup of anything that's blocking that grease line, any kind of, you know, failure or not perfect, not precise greasing performance is being picked up by the software, then, you know, we get those alerts, we get those notifications, we get told about it to basically ensure that, you know, we can do autonomous precision-based lubrication, and if anything gets in the way, then, you know, we're told about that issue.
So proactive preventative maintenance, which is obviously where everyone is trying to go, lubrication can be a huge data point that, again, maybe people either take for granted or think, well, we're changing it out every 3 months or 6 months or whatever the clipboard on the machine says. Well, we're doing that, so we're doing everything we can, but we can actually go further than that, because the fluids do have something to tell us in a non-destructive examination kind of way.
Exactly. So the questions I can ask someone who has that clipboard is, how do you know that you're lubricating at the right time? You know, we can use our manufacturer specifications, we can do it the way we've always done it, but do we know that that's the best way? Do we have the data to basically tell us one way or the other? On top of that, does it always get done that way? Do you miss the odd day, or, you know, does less grease get pumped in, or too much grease? You know, happens very often as well. How do we ensure that we're following it? How do we make sure that it's that we're achieving what we think we are? And basically, with real-time online data, that's how we achieve that. So when we put bearings online and monitoring their friction levels, as soon as we start to see those decibels increase, direct indication of an increase in friction, you know, we can prompt just the smallest amount of grease onto there just to keep it at the baseline, and monitor it throughout that greasing process to make sure it's exactly where it needs to be, and then monitor it after the greasing process to make sure it stays there. And it's just an autonomous, all-round solution for ensuring that the greasing is spot on and perfect.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the ROI of this, because, of course, anytime you're bringing in a new tool or a new technology, someone has to say, we did this because it's going to do X for us. And I can imagine there's a huge thing in overall equipment effectiveness and life cycle management of the assets. But what are some of the big wins that you're seeing when your clients bring these tools online?
Huge one, like there can be a massive, very quick return on investment, as we can quickly tell whether it's the right amount, the right type of grease that's being used. That's obviously, very can be very effective to a machine.
And I can also see that being a thing where, like, human error can be, it's natural. Someone's walking around with a grease gun and he's doing different things, and he's not thinking this one is for that machine and that one needs a different kind. He's not going back to the closet to get the other grease gun. He's got one in his hand.
Sure.
It's natural, and it's a mistake that anybody can make, and this is going to help with that.
I don't typically highlight just the the mitigation of mistakes, because there's so many benefits, before you even get to that. I say, like, making sure you've got the right grease, making sure the right amount of grease is going in, making sure that it's at the exact time that it's needed. One part is making sure that it's being greased whilst the bearing is running. Because if the machine is dangerous to approach and you have to remove guarding and you have to grease it when it's not running, then you're pumping grease into one side of the bearing and the bearing isn't working that grease route. Whereas when we have an autonomous lubrication device on a bearing, we can grease it as it moves. And so safety is a huge part of that as well.
Oh, I love that. Again, I kind of want to think about this from the perspective of our listeners. I think probably some light bulbs are going off and they're saying, oh, this makes a lot of sense, but where do you get started? In a perfect world, you'd put this on every machine, but there's probably a critical piece or something that, it's a labor intensive to maintain. When you're having conversations with people who say, I do want to give this a try, where do I get started? How does that conversation go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you said, most critical, particularly if there's any bearings that are already a headache, they're already difficult to reach, or they're having a lot of issues. That's great for us to be able to start with mitigating a headache. But ultimately, wherever we begin, as long as that machine is running and we're getting data, we're going to show you that value. Start wherever you think is easiest to do an installation and track. Or give us a challenge and give us something that's tough. Like we do like a challenge, and we do like to prove ourselves. So,
how does this tool integrate with existing software within a factory?
Yeah.
Because we have visibility on so many things, and this is a new thing that, forgive me, when I think maintenance, I don't always think the maintenance tool plays well with the productivity tool. I'm sure I'm wrong about that. Let's talk about how it's sharing data.
We've set up a lot of integrations with clients, whether it's just simply a notification system. They don't want to get a notification by a text or an email or a push. They want to get it in their system. That's nice and easy to do. I never approach any integration like, this is what we did with the last customer and this is what we can do for you. There's often a lot of tailoring that goes into that.
Want it to do.
Exactly. Sometimes it's the communication that's going the other way. They want to alert our system if they're changing out a bearing and things like that, just so we can take that into account, and the data knows how to react if it's a different bearing number or a different application that the customer's making that change on. But yeah, ultimately it's very custom. We've never said no, and we've never failed and not accepted a challenge. So when it comes to integrations, we like to be very flexible.
When I think back to some of the conversations I had many years ago about the industrial Internet of Things, people were very excited about our sensor. We're going to put our sensor on this, we're going to put our sensor on that, it's going to collect data and share it back, and it's going to be wonderful. And I think it's a more nuanced conversation today. I think it's not one size fits all. I think it's probably something that needs to be tailored, and I think you're probably at the forefront of those conversations. Walk us through when someone says, I'm interested in what you're offering, what are my next steps? Like, what are you asking of them?
Yeah, I mean, I often find there's a discomfort with the confidence that I can portray that I have a sensor that will, monitor your equipment. And I don't think people want to hear that I think I know their equipment. And what I like to do is say to them, look, I will come down to your facility, I will take a knee and look at your assets, and we're going to work out the best way to monitor this asset. And if that is an all-in-one temperature vibration sensor, which is, what a lot of the industry takes as that one-size-fits-all solution, then brilliant. But, more often than not, there's complications. Does this machine run intermittently? Is a battery-powered sensor that takes a reading every few minutes going to be good for monitoring that start-stop running? Does this machine run very slowly? Is the vibration data actually going to pick up on those very sensitive changes in movement? And so we utilize ultrasound and we utilize different technologies. We can do pressure, we can do temperature, we can do operational things like that to basically find the best way to have this machine online and notify us of any anomalies or potential issues. And so it's almost the opposite of a one-size-fits-all. It's every machine, same way as people. Like every machine has its own data and has its own personality. And even if I've monitored 15, 20 identical machines in 15, 20 identical plants, we still need to approach this asset like it's got its own it's got its own characteristics. And so that's what we do.
Absolutely. The whole time I'm having this conversation, I'm just thinking there's a level of trust. Like if I had a factory, I would trust you to be able to come in and help me. Maybe we can talk about what makes Industrial Matrix sort of a leader in this space. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
We obviously have our software development and technical and automation teams. We obviously have the business development and the marketing side of things. But our pride and joy really is the customer success side. These people we have who work in customer success are maintenance professionals, vibration analysts, really just industry experts, and obviously very experienced with our platform and how it gets used. And their job is to ensure that every customer that uses Industrial Matrix gets their return on investment, gets their value, gets exactly what they expect. Like they come in with something in mind, and the customer success team will find out what they have in mind and find out what they are expecting to get from us, and make sure that that's exactly what they receive back, hopefully plus more. Mm-hmm. We often hear brand new ways that customers find their return on investment. We always think of it as if machine doesn't break down, you have your return on investment because you didn't lose any production and that machine was worth a certain amount of money, and you have maintenance costs when you replace it. And we hear brand new ways that customers say, well, actually, I've completely devised my entire swap out system based on your data, or I was able to use your data to do my RFQ or get my boss to sign off on me replacing this machinery and things like that. And there's many ways the customers come to us all the time with brand new ways that they're using our data to find value and things like that. So the customer success team is really, as I say, the pride and joy of Industrial Matrix. We're very proud of how hard and how dedicated those individuals are, and they are as a team as well. And I think it just gives, we spoke about confidence. I think it gives the customers a lot of confidence that the person who's installing the sensors, the person who is monitoring the data, and the person who is meeting with them and giving them their reports is the same person. And that's what the customer success managers at Industrial Matrix are there to do.
We have covered a lot of ground in this conversation. If there were a couple of things you wanted to highlight for people and have them think about a little further, what are some of the bullet points you hope they take away from this conversation?
I think we did cover it pretty well. It is the wide range of technologies. It is the dedicated services, both on-site and remote. And it's really that customer-obsessed attitude that we have, and that's why we're very flexible with the integrations, very flexible with the technologies. Any way that we can fulfill a customer's needs, if it means we have to change slightly, like we want to take that path and really make this all about the customer's experience.
Terrific. Well, I think that's a great place maybe to wrap things up. I do suspect when people saw the name of this episode, they clicked in because they wanted more information about it, and they may be at this point in the episode saying, Jeff, you should have asked them this, you should have asked them that. For people who do have their own questions that are specific to their own operations, what is the best way for them to get in touch and pick the brains of people at Industrial Matrix?
Absolutely. So industrialmatrix.com is our website. General mailing inbox that you'll find on the website is info@industrialmatrix.com. But also, my name is Samuel Tomlinson. I'm on the LinkedIn page for Industrial Matrix as well. Please feel free to connect with me and send me any messages that you have.
I always think it's so generous when people say that, because, of course, I get the pleasure of chatting with you. And for anyone who's been listening to this and say, Sam really seems to know his stuff, I encourage you to reach out. Sam, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you for your time.
You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint Podcast Series. I've been Jeff Mix. Let's do it again soon.